Ambassador Luna Rodriguez stepped into the Galactic Council chambers with the kind of confidence that comes from representing a species that had clawed its way from caves to starships in record time. Not that anyone here seemed impressed. The three alien delegates lounged in their respective atmospheric bubbles like they owned the galaxy, which, to be fair, they kind of did. Prime Minister Grelix of the Vorthak Empire resembled what would happen if a rhino had a passionate affair with a filing cabinet. His metallic hide gleamed under the chamber's artificial suns, and when he smiled, it looked like someone had carved a canyon into a mountain. "Ah, the human arrives," he rumbled, his translator making him sound like gravel in a blender. How adorably punctual. General Vex of the Zephyrian Collective was essentially a 6-foot-tall praying mantis who had discovered both steroids and a serious attitude problem. Her compound eyes fixed on Luna with the kind of attention a cat gives a particularly slow mouse. "I was expecting something more impressive," she clicked. The files said humans were dangerous. The third delegate didn't have a name humans could pronounce, so everyone just called it Nexus. It was the representative of the crystalline hive mind, looking like someone had taught a chandelier how to hate. Its voice came from everywhere at once, a harmonic convergence of condescension. Threat assessment indicates minimal concern, bipedal, limited sensory organs, probability of successful negotiation, acceptable. Luna took her seat with practiced, diplomatic grace, setting down her briefcase with the kind of care that suggested it contained either very important documents or a really good sandwich. "Gentlemen, lady, Crystalline Collective Consciousness, thank you for agreeing to these talks." "Oh, we wouldn't miss this for anything." Grelix chuckled, a sound like boulders having a disagreement. "It's not often we get to meet a species so charmingly naive about galactic politics." The peace talks were supposedly about establishing formal diplomatic relations between humanity and the three major galactic powers. Luna had spent months preparing, studying their cultures, their histories, their preferences in atmospheric composition, and preferred lighting. She'd even learned to say hello in 17 different languages, though apparently screaming in terror counted as a greeting in Zephyrian culture. "Before we begin," Luna said, consulting her notes, "I'd like to address the situation in the Kepler colonies. The reports of civilian casualties are troubling. Perhaps we could discuss mercy protocols for non-combatants." The word hung in the air like a bad smell. Then Grelix started laughing. It began as a low rumble, like a landslide getting started, then built into something that could probably be heard from orbit. Vex joined in with a sound like crystal wind chimes being fed through a wood chipper. Even Nexus contributed what could generously be called mirth, though it sounded more like a server farm having a seizure. "Mercy," Grelix wheezed, wiping what might have been tears from his canyon face. "She said mercy. Oh, that's precious." "Did your species actually evolve?" Vex clicked incredulously. "Or did you just get really lucky with opposable thumbs?" Luna's smile never wavered, though her grip on her stylus tightened just enough to leave finger impressions in the metal. "I'm sorry, did I say something amusing?" "Oh, my dear little primate," Grelix rumbled, settling back into his atmospheric cushions like he was getting comfortable for a show. "You're here thinking this is a negotiation. How absolutely delightful." That's when Luna noticed the subtle changes in the room's dynamics. The door had sealed with a soft hiss. The communication arrays that should have been blinking green were now a steady, ominous red, and the three delegates were looking at her the way a panel of judges might look at a defendant who'd already been found guilty. "You see," General Vex explained, preening her razor-sharp forearms with obvious pleasure, "we've been watching your little species for quite some time. Very entertaining. You've got spirit, we'll give you that. The way you blew up your own moon trying to build a parking garage was particularly amusing." "That was a mining accident," Luna said carefully. "Sure it was." Vex's mandibles clicked in what passed for a grin among her species. "The point is, we've decided humanity has exactly one useful quality." Nexus's voice filled the chamber with crystalline certainty. "Evaluation complete. Human species classification, optimal manual laborers, dexterous digits, adequate strength, sufficient intelligence for simple tasks. Breeding rate suggests sustainable population for workforce requirements. The words hit Luna like a diplomatic slap to the face, but she kept her expression neutral. Years of training had taught her that the moment you showed weakness in these situations, you might as well start shopping for chains. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice carrying just the right amount of confused innocence. "Are you suggesting enslavement?" "Suggesting?" Grelix's laughter could have registered on seismic equipment. "My dear ambassador, we're not suggesting anything. We're informing you of a decision that's already been made." The main display screen flickered to life, showing a tactical map of human space. Red markers indicated fleet positions, and there were a lot of them. Way too many of them, surrounding every major human colony, every trade route, every strategic resource depot. 300 Vorthak battleships, Grelix announced proudly, gesturing at the display like a real estate agent showing off a particularly nice property. Each one capable of cracking a planet like an egg. 250 Zephyrian hunter-killer squadrons, Vex added, her compound eyes literally gleaming with anticipation. "We specialize in precision strikes, very clean, very efficient. Well, clean from our perspective. Crystalline collective computational warfare platforms, 112 units. Nexus chimed in with the enthusiasm of an accountant reading a particularly satisfying spreadsheet. Capable of simultaneous cyber attacks on all human technological infrastructure. Estimated time to complete digital subjugation, 4.7 minutes. Luna stared at the display, her mind racing through calculations she really didn't want to be making. The numbers were devastating. If these fleets were real, if they were positioned where the display indicated, humanity didn't stand a chance in a conventional fight. "Of course," Grelix continued, clearly enjoying himself immensely, "we're not completely unreasonable. We're prepared to offer terms." "How generous," Luna replied, her voice dry as lunar dust. "Complete surrender within 72 hours, Vex listed on her clause like she was reading a shopping list. Immediate cessation of all military activities. Voluntary relocation to designated work colonies. Oh, and dissolution of all human governmental structures. We find democracy terribly inefficient. Estimated human casualties under compliance scenario. Minimal," Nexus added helpfully. Estimated casualties under resistance scenario. Comprehensive. Luna looked around the room at the three beings who held the fate of humanity in their various appendages. "And if we refuse?" The silence that followed was the kind that makes black holes seem chatty. "Well," Grelix finally rumbled, "let's just say that mercy you mentioned earlier. That would be the time to have asked for it." What followed was perhaps the most professionally humiliating 20 minutes in the history of interspecies relations. Luna knew, because Nexus was helpfully counting down the time on the main display, apparently having calculated that 20 minutes was the optimal duration for psychological pressure before diminishing returns set in. 19 minutes 37 seconds remaining, Nexus announced as Grelix launched into what could only be described as the galaxy's most inappropriate comedy routine. "So there I was," the Vorthak Prime Minister was saying, having apparently decided that genocide was best served with a side of stand-up comedy, facing down the Andorian Peace Council, and their representative, this little blue fellow with antennae that quivered when he was nervous. He looks me right in the eye and says, "Surely we can find a peaceful solution that benefits everyone." Grelix paused for dramatic effect, his canyon mouth stretched in what he probably thought was a winning smile. "So I ate him." Vex's mandibles clicked in appreciation. Classic Vorthak diplomacy. "We Zephyrians prefer a more artistic approach." She began pacing, her movements predatory and hypnotic. "The Rigelian Confederation once sent me a petition signed by 3 billion citizens begging for mercy. 3 billion individual signatures, can you imagine? It took them months to organize. 15 minutes, 12 seconds remaining," Nexus reported. "Did you grant it?" Luna asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "Oh, I granted them something," Vex clicked, her compound eyes glittering with malicious delight. "I granted them front row seats to watch me glass their capital city from orbit. Very artistic." The way the atmosphere ignited in those beautiful spirals of flame. They wept, you know. Actual tears. It was quite moving. Physiological response indicates elevated stress levels in human subject, Nexus observed with clinical detachment. Perspiration increased by 12%, heart rate elevated. Fascinating. The emotional vulnerability of individualistic species never ceases to provide data. Luna's hands had stopped shaking, which was either a very good sign or a very bad one. She'd moved past terror and into the kind of cold calculation that had gotten humanity from the caves to the stars in the first place. You know what I love about mercy? Grelix was saying, apparently having decided to turn this into a philosophical discussion. It's so wonderfully inefficient. Take the Centauri Commonwealth. Beautiful species, very elegant, very refined. When we conquered them, their leader offered to surrender half their worlds to save the other half. 10 minutes, 45 seconds remaining, Nexus announced. Naturally, we took all their worlds anyway, Grelix continued with the casual tone of someone discussing the weather. But we told them we were being merciful by letting some of them live in our labor camps. They actually thanked us. Can you imagine? The main screen flickered, showing live feeds from human colonies. Normal people going about their lives, completely unaware that their fate was being decided in a room filled with beings who considered genocide a form of performance art. Look at them, Vex mused, studying the feeds with professional interest. So blissfully ignorant, building their little cities, raising their little offspring, dreaming their little dreams. In 72 hours, those dreams become our property. 7 minutes, 18 seconds remaining, Nexus reported, psychological pressure approaching optimal threshold for surrender response. Luna watched the feeds, seeing children playing in parks, couples walking hand in hand, old people feeding birds, normal, everyday humanity in all its messy, chaotic, beautiful imperfection. The irony, Grelix rumbled thoughtfully, is that mercy is exactly what separates the rulers from the ruled, the strong from the weak, the predators from the prey. Your species clings to it like a security blanket, never realizing it's actually a leash. 4 minutes, 31 seconds remaining. Mercy is a luxury, Vex clicked, and luxuries are for those who can afford them. Your species cannot. 2 minutes, 9 seconds remaining. Luna looked up from the feeds, her expression unreadable. Are you finished? Nearly, Grelix chuckled. Just waiting for the inevitable moment when you break down and beg. It's always the best part. Time remaining, 47 seconds. The room fell silent except for the soft hum of life support systems and Nexus's countdown. Luna sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, watching the seconds tick away with the patience of someone who had nothing left to lose. Time remaining, 10 seconds, 9, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Time elapsed. Exactly 20 minutes, Nexus announced with what might have been satisfaction. Optimal psychological pressure period complete. Grelix leaned forward, his massive bulk casting shadows across Luna's seat. Well, Ambassador? Ready to discuss the terms of your species' surrender? Luna smiled. It wasn't a diplomatic smile, or a friendly smile, or even a particularly human smile. It was the kind of smile that apex predators wore right before they reminded everyone why they were at the top of the food chain. Actually, she said, reaching for her briefcase, I'd like to make a phone call first. The laughter that erupted from the 3 aliens could probably have been heard in the next solar system. Grelix was making sounds like a mountain range having hiccups. Vex was clicking so rapidly, she sounded like a machine gun loaded with castanets, and Nexus was producing harmonic frequencies that made the chamber's crystals ring like wind chimes in a hurricane. A phone call, Grelix wheezed, slapping his massive thigh with enough force to crack stone. She wants to make a phone call. What's next, asking for a lawyer? Oh, please do call someone, Vex clicked, wiping what might have been tears of mirth from her compound eyes. Call your mother. Call your government. Call your God if you have one. We've been monitoring your communications for months. Every frequency, every encryption, Every desperate little signal you send into the void. Luna opened her briefcase with the casual efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times before. Inside, nestled among diplomatic papers and what appeared to be a half-eaten sandwich, was a communication device that looked suspiciously like it had been cobbled together from spare parts and sheer human stubbornness. "Communication attempt detected," Nexus announced with the smugness of a security system that had never met a decent hacker. "Signal blocked. Jamming field maintaining integrity at 99.7% efficiency." "That's nice," Luna said, connecting several cables with the practiced ease of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. "This doesn't use electromagnetic frequencies." The alien laughter died like a party after the police arrived. "Quantum entanglement communicator Mark 7, Luna explained conversationally, adjusting dials with the confidence of someone who'd helped build the thing. Instantaneous communication across any distance. The jamming field might as well be a strongly worded letter for all the good it'll do. She flipped a switch, and the device hummed to life with a sound like the universe clearing its throat. "Earth Command, this is Luna Rodriguez. Diplomatic Mission Alpha 77. Authentication code. The moon landing was fake, but only because we filmed it on Mars. Please confirm receipt." The response came immediately, crisp and clear and absolutely terrifying in its implications. "Luna, this is Admiral Kane. We've been waiting for your call. Authentication confirmed. You sound stressed." "I've had better days, Sarah," Luna replied, apparently on a first-name basis with someone the aliens were now realizing they probably should have researched more thoroughly. "I'm currently in the Galactic Council chambers with Prime Minister Grelix of the Vorthak Empire, General Vex of the Zephyrian Collective, and the Crystalline Hive Mind representative Nexus." The axis of evil. How are they treating you?" "They've been explaining their plans for humanity's immediate enslavement, very detailed, very thorough. They even provided a nice tactical display showing their fleet positions." There was a pause from Earth Command that somehow managed to sound ominous through a quantum communicator. "Luna," Admiral Kane said in the tone of someone who was trying very hard to remain professional, "please tell me you got all of that on record." Luna tapped the communication device, which had apparently been recording the entire conversation. Every word, every threat, every admission of genocidal intent, the whole 20-minute comedy routine. "Outstanding. Please hold for tactical assessment." The chamber had gone silent except for the soft humming of the quantum communicator. The three aliens were staring at Luna with the kind of expression typically reserved for watching a house cat suddenly reveal it was actually a saber-toothed tiger. Grelix rumbled uncertainly. "What exactly is happening here?" "What's happening," Luna replied pleasantly, "is that you've just confessed to planning genocide against a species that takes a very dim view of that sort of thing. You've provided detailed intelligence about your fleet positions, your tactical capabilities, and your strategic objectives. And you've done it all while being recorded by someone you assumed was just a helpless diplomat." The quantum communicator crackled back to life. "Luna, tactical assessment complete. We see their fleets. Very impressive. Very well positioned. Also very exposed." "Define exposed, Admiral." "They're arranged in a standard siege formation, optimized for keeping things in rather than keeping things out. Classic mistake. It's like they've never heard of rapid deployment protocols or multi-vector assault strategies." Vex's mandibles were clicking rapidly in what Luna was beginning to recognize as panic. "Those are classified military formations. How could they possibly—" "Luna," Admiral Kane interrupted, "please inform the representatives that their tactical formations are about as secret as yesterday's weather. We've been watching them position those fleets for weeks." "Impossible," Nexus stated with crystalline certainty that was starting to sound a little less certain. "Human technological capabilities insufficient for such surveillance. Probability calculations indicate—" "Your probability calculations," Luna said sweetly, "are about to encounter some very inconvenient variables." The quantum communicator hummed with what might have been amusement. "Luna, you might want to suggest they look out a window. We're about to provide a demonstration of human technological capabilities." Through the chamber's massive viewing ports, space began to shimmer. Not dramatically, not obviously, but with the subtle wrongness of reality being gently nudged aside to make room for something that shouldn't have been able to fit. "What?" Grelix whispered, his voice barely audible over the communicator's hum. "Is that?" Luna followed his gaze and smiled with the satisfaction of someone whose bluff had just turned out not to be a bluff after all. "That," she said, "is humanity showing you exactly how much we appreciate your hospitality." The shimmer in space resolved itself into something that defied several laws of physics, and at least two commonly accepted theories about the maximum size of things that could exist without collapsing into black holes. "Fleet emergence complete." Admiral Kane's voice crackled through the quantum communicator with the satisfaction of someone unveiling a surprise party. "All vessels report ready status." What had appeared in space around the Galactic Council station wasn't just a fleet. It was a statement. A very large, very heavily armed statement written in the universal language of, "You done messed up now." The human vessels didn't look like the sleek, elegant ships favored by the three galactic powers. They looked like someone had taken a city-sized brick, covered it in gun turrets, and taught it how to fly, which Luna reflected wasn't far from the truth. "Impossible," Nexus stated, though its voice had lost some of its earlier harmonic certainty. "Human industrial capacity insufficient for fleet construction of this magnitude. Calculations indicate—" "Your calculations," Admiral Kane interrupted through the communicator, "failed to account for what happens when you threaten a species that considers overkill a starting point rather than a destination." The tactical display that had been showing the aliens' impressive fleet positions now looked like a completely different kind of map. The human ships hadn't just appeared randomly. They'd materialized in perfect formation around every single alien vessel, creating a three-dimensional chess game where humanity had somehow managed to move all their pieces simultaneously. "Vorthak battleships," Admiral Kane announced with the clinical detachment of someone reading a grocery list. "You are surrounded. Surrender or be destroyed. Zephyrian hunter-killer squadrons, you are outgunned approximately 7-1. Surrender or be destroyed. Crystalline collective computational warfare platforms, your cyber attack capabilities have been neutralized by countermeasures you didn't know we possessed. Surrender or be destroyed." Through the viewing ports, the three aliens watched their fleets discover that the predator-prey relationship in space had just been brutally redefined. The Vorthak battleships, massive and imposing, found themselves facing human dreadnoughts that made them look like toys. Each human ship was a technological impossibility, bristling with weapon systems that shouldn't have existed and powered by energy sources that definitely shouldn't have been stable. "How?" Grelix whispered, his voice barely audible. "How is this possible?" "Funny thing about mercy," Luna said, settling back in her chair like someone preparing to enjoy a show. "It requires strength to be meaningful. You can't show mercy from a position of weakness, that's just begging." The Zephyrian hunter-killers were discovering that human engineering had a disturbing tendency to optimize for scenarios that most species considered impossibly unlikely, like being outnumbered 100-1 by supposedly superior technology. "You see," Luna continued conversationally, "humanity learned a long time ago that the universe is full of things that want to kill us. Weather, disease, large animals with big teeth, each other. So we got very, very good at killing things back. The crystalline collective platforms were learning about human cyber warfare capabilities, which had been developed by a species paranoid enough to assume that their toasters were probably trying to hack their nuclear weapons." "Admiral Kane," Luna said into the communicator, "status report on alien fleet compliance." "Approximately 60% have surrendered. The remainder appear to be suffering from what our xenopsychology team calls terminal disbelief syndrome. They can't accept that they've been outmaneuvered, so they're trying to fight anyway." "And how's that working out for them?" "About as well as you'd expect. The Vorthak 3rd Battle Group just discovered that human kinetic weapons don't actually need to hit their targets to be effective. We've moved beyond explosions and into the realm of localized physics violations." Through the viewing ports, space lit up with the brief, brilliant flashes that marked the end of several military careers and the beginning of a very different kind of galaxy. The Zephyrian 7th Squadron learned about human missile technology. Turns out our missiles don't just track targets, they negotiate with reality to ensure compliance. Another series of flashes painted the void in colors that didn't have names in any known language. And the crystalline collective platforms discovered that when humans say cyber warfare, we mean something slightly different than everyone else. Apparently, they weren't expecting their own computers to develop ethical objections to genocide. Nexus was flickering in a way that suggested its distributed consciousness was having what could politely be called a very bad day. This is impossible. Humans are primitive. Recent emergence from single-planet status. Technology levels insufficient. Insufficient for what? Admiral Kane's voice cut through the chamber with the precision of a surgical laser. Insufficient to spend the last 50 years preparing for exactly this scenario. Insufficient to develop countermeasures for every weapon system you've used in the last century. Insufficient to build a fleet specifically designed to end threats to human survival with extreme prejudice. The tactical display updated, showing the final alien holdouts winking out of existence with the casual efficiency of someone turning off lights. All alien military assets have been neutralized, Admiral Kane reported. Total time, 11 minutes, 43 seconds. I'm told that's a new record. Luna looked around at the three beings who had spent the last 20 minutes explaining why mercy was weakness and genocide was efficiency. They were no longer laughing. Now then, she said pleasantly, shall we discuss terms? 6 hours later, Luna sat in the same chair in the same chamber, but the dynamics had shifted in ways that would have given a physicist nightmares. The three beings who had been so eager to explain the efficiency of genocide were now occupying what could generously be called the defendant's table. Let me make sure I understand the situation, Luna said, consulting notes that she definitely hadn't had 6 hours ago. You attempted to commit genocide against the human species. You confessed to previous genocides against at least 7 other species. And you did all of this while being recorded by a diplomatic representative who you assumed was helpless. Grelix, who had shrunk considerably in the last few hours, made a sound like gravel apologizing to a steamroller. Perhaps there were some misunderstandings. Admiral Kane, Luna said into her communicator, could you please read the charges against Prime Minister Grelix? The Admiral's voice filled the chamber with bureaucratic precision that was somehow more terrifying than any weapon. Genocide. Attempted genocide. Conspiracy to commit genocide, war crimes, crimes against sentience, unlawful imprisonment, slavery, and violation of approximately 47 interstellar treaties that we're pretty sure he signed. The Andorian Peace Council sends their regards from beyond the grave, Luna added helpfully. Vex's compound eyes were focused on the floor, her usually predatory posture replaced by what could only be described as the stance of someone who had seriously miscalculated. If we cooperate fully. General Vex, Luna interrupted, the Rigelian Confederation has been reconstituted from the survivors you left scattered across 3 star systems. They're very interested in discussing reparations, in person. As for you, Luna continued, turning to Nexus, whose crystalline form was flickering like a broken hologram, the good news is that distributed consciousness means you can't be executed for your crimes. The bad news is that distributed consciousness means you get to experience justice from multiple perspectives simultaneously. The quantum communicator crackled with what might have been satisfaction. Luna, the preliminary tribunals are ready to proceed. We've got judges from 12 species, prosecutors from 23 more, and enough evidence to keep everyone busy for the next century. Excellent. And the territorial adjustments? All former alien military installations are now under human administration. We're calling it protective custody for the galaxy. The various species they've been oppressing are surprisingly grateful for the change in management. Luna stood, smoothing her diplomatic jacket with the kind of precision that suggested she'd done this before. Many times. In many different circumstances that the aliens were only now beginning to understand. Here's how this works, she announced, her voice carrying the authority of someone who represented a species that had just redefined galactic power structures. You 3 will be tried for your crimes. If found guilty, and let's be honest, you confessed to everything on a recorded channel, You'll serve sentences determined by the survivors of your various genocides. She paused, letting that sink in for exactly the right amount of time. Your former territories will be administered by human peacekeeping forces until such time as legitimate governments can be established. Your military capabilities will be permanently restricted to levels appropriate for species that can't be trusted with anything sharper than safety scissors. Grelix made it sound like a mountain having an existential crisis. But our sovereignty. Your sovereignty, Luna replied with the patience of someone explaining basic concepts to a child, ended the moment you decided genocide was a viable foreign policy option. The irony. She continued walking to the viewing ports where human ships now patrolled the space lanes like benevolent predators, is that humanity will govern your former territories with exactly the mercy and compassion you spent so much time mocking. She turned back to face the three beings who had learned, far too late, the difference between weakness and restraint. We'll rebuild the worlds you destroyed. We'll feed the populations you starved. We'll educate the species you tried to enslave. And we'll do it all while remembering that mercy isn't weakness. It's a choice that only the strong can make. The chamber fell silent except for the soft hum of human technology maintaining order in a galaxy that had forgotten what that looked like. Your mistake, Luna said with the finality of someone closing a book, was confusing kindness with weakness. Humanity's strength was never in our weapons or our ships or our technology. Our strength was in choosing when not to use them. She gathered her briefcase, her notes, and her quantum communicator with the efficient motions of someone whose work here was done. The universe is a dangerous place, she said, walking toward the door that no longer sealed at alien command, full of species that think might makes right, that survival justifies atrocity, that mercy is a luxury they can't afford. She paused at the threshold, looking back at three beings who had learned, in the span of a single afternoon, that they were no longer the apex predators they'd thought they were. Fortunately for the galaxy, Luna Rodriguez concluded with a smile that contained exactly the right amount of diplomatic warmth and absolutely no forgiveness at all, humanity has a different perspective on what the strong owe to the weak. The door closed behind her with a soft click, leaving the former masters of the galaxy to contemplate their new status as history's most thoroughly defeated conquerors. Outside, human ships patrolled the space lanes, and the galaxy began to learn what mercy looked like when it came from a position of unquestionable strength. It looked, surprisingly enough, a lot like hope.